Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Respect the Geekdom presents Geeky Philosophies. I decided to kind of go into, I was going to think about doing almost one of each of the geeky philosophies or codes I wanted to go into, but I think it would be a little bit quicker, more efficient just to start off with what the basics are before I get deeper into it. So that means that since I did start NTG Color Pie and the D&D alignments, I'll start by finishing the basics of those. So for the MTG Color Pie, the five colors, and with the D&D alignments, the nine alignments before I start diving into either deeper complications of those philosophies or even diving into other philosophies such as the Hogwarts symbologies, the Star Wars symbologies, and a couple more after that. But we're going to dive into back into the MTG philosophy, the blue, which, by the way, during this week I had an epiphany about how I finally see the colors of each. So listen up, this might be interesting. So how I see each color of each before I dive into one of them, blue. We start off with white. White I see as pretty much the spirit, the code of a person, and also pretty much the possible martial or the discipline of that person, since uh, they're more of the code enforced or the kind of soldier government kind of force. So there's a lot of discipline that goes on in that process. The blue side goes with the mind, the creativity, and also the intuition of a person, which we'll dive into that pretty soon. The red deals with the emotion, the passion, the impulse of the person, or how people may be mostly red, they may be emotional, maybe more passionate, they may also be more impulsive, depending on what happens. We have the green, which I think deals with the instincts. It also deals with the body awareness and the body of the person, knowing what they go through. But it also can deal with how they feel with nature, which bounces between that line of um, friendly nature, which is like which is kind of karma in a way, and also the savagery of nature, becoming a true loner or a true animal in a way. And then, of course, we have the faithful black, which, like I mentioned before in my past video, I don't believe that the color black is an evil color. I'm diving into how pretty much being unbalanced in a color or being too much of that color could be actually the evil side more than just one single color. But black for me deals with ambition or the will of somebody or something. But we're going to dive right into blue. So blue, color of the mind, imagination, foresight, the sea and the sky. When I see blue, when I play blue, when I examine pretty much a blue card, I see that one, it deals with anything involving the mind or the mindset of somebody or something. Because of that, most of the time, blue is possibly the next color besides white that is the more stoic, the more like sinking in, no emotion, and doing what needs to be done in a way. Because of that, though, is also the more analytical of the rest of the colors, and I'll dive into how that works in its favor during playing the game, or how that play in real life. So what is blue's value? So what's blue's defining characteristics in MTG, or maybe how you see in people? One of them is their intellect. Blue people are most of the time very intelligent people, or they're very thirsty for knowledge. Pretty much blue is known for pretty much its draw mechanic. It's also known for its researching, or in some cases searching through the library to find that specific thing. Blue also has a love for technology. Um, it loves to pretty much be in the future as much as possible, thus foresight. But it also has a love for artifacts, an appreciation for artifacts, and a good use for artifacts. And also on top of that, I see that works well with it's one of the few colors, or at least for me when I started playing, it's one also the colors that helps you bring out combos. So if you find that specific piece or that specific card that goes well with this card, that goes well with this card, that kind of makes this combo thing going on, blue will be your color that I think you do to go for. It's also the color of perfection. It wants to make sure that it keeps researching or finding that better answer. Now, granted, because of that, because of its search for perfection, because of its first for pretty much owning knowledge, it has gained it a lot of advantages. For instance, blue is also known for not only controlling time, but also the color of understanding before we attack something. And because of it understanding before we attack something, it is known for pretty much the most infamous spell, the counter spell, which is basically for a certain amount of mana when someone is about to play something, you basically get to play that card and say no. And unless they have another counter spell or unless they have a card that kind of blocks that, it really resolves and they basically don't get to play that thing. So because of its understanding of how spells work, it's created pretty much the anti-spell. And on top of that, it's done that with a lot of things because of its understanding of how sometimes some creatures work. It can make adjustments to the creature so it can go straight to the opponent, whether it involves flying or whether it involves complete being unable to block it. That's how that works usually. Now, blue has a thirst for knowledge, as I just stated. How does blue has a thirst for knowledge? Blue has a thirst for knowledge on pretty much has a thirst for knowledge on the opponent. Like I told you before, it likes to understand as much as possible before it makes a decision. It's that color. So it wants to know as much as possible about the opponent, whether it be looking into your hand, whether it be seeing something and then bouncing it, or just seeing how the opponent reacts to one thing or another thing. Another thing it wants knowledge on is strengths and weaknesses, not just on the opponent, but on itself. It wants to know strengths and weaknesses of its opponent, so it knows how to influence its weakness, and it wants to know strengths and weaknesses on itself, so it can cover up those weaknesses. It also wants to go for improvements. This is the color. There's another color that we'll be talking about probably next that is also good on improvements in a different light, but it always wants to be better. Remember, the perfectionist part. It wants to be as perfect as it can be. There's also also has a thirst for more knowledge. Remember, to blue, the more that I know, the more powerful I become. That's pretty much what blue's motto is. And that's why if you're playing against blue, most scary thing to see is a blue player who has a lot of lands and a full hand. If he has a full hand of cards, tread carefully. And also, we got another characteristic of blue. Blue is also, since it's understanding of the mind, also knows how to trick the mind, how to influence the mind. This can go with illusions. This can also go with mind games. And then sometimes with trickery, it can also go with flat out stealing or thievery in a way. And that's where pretty much blue kind of influences it in most of its cases. So now that we've gone over I think the meaty details of blue, I'm going to go over what happens if blue is balanced. If you're having a person, if you're talking to a person or being near a person that has a good balance of blue, their blue is balanced, or if they're mostly blue on the good side, they could be very intellectual, like I told you. They could be very understanding and then placing what they need to place. Pretty much observe and do. They want to understand the situation or topic, let it digest before they put their 2 cents in. They have a good use of their imagination and creativity. Because of this, they could also be awesome planners. They know how to plan. They know how to place. They know how to keep it pretty much looking up to the sky, but having a good plan on how to climb up to the sky, pretty much. They may also have, or also have pretty much good intuition. They have pretty much a good feeling up here. They can sense up here about like what may happen, or they can observe and kind of add up stuff and be like, okay, this is how this may happen. And on top of that, for Blue's perfectionism being the better self mentally, it can be very efficient. It can try to be very efficient. It wants to strive for efficiency. Now, what happens if you have someone in Blue that's on the bad side, or their Blue is unbalanced? They could be too much into their head. They want too much information. Because of too much information, they can go with what's called analysis paralysis, to where they know so much, and then because they know so much, they don't do anything. Pretty much along with that, they can know so much or too much to the point that where they don't need any more information. They think that I know everything I need to know, and they may be a little bit arrogant about it. It's like I know everything I need to know, and I don't need your input. I don't need your 2 cents. I want to be a little bit vicious about it. That's how that's how Blues kind of views on a bad side of how they can be. They can also be a little bit too controlling in multiple ways. Blues not only known for its mind games, for its being able to use its mind effectively, it's also the color being known that if you want to know how to control the field or control the game, this is the color you want to examine. And because of that, it can be too kind of controlling, both mentally, or it can pretty much be so controlling they can manipulate people and knows how to sway people. It can be so controlling that it's just that you don't know what else to do. And that's can be somebody who can be, knows your every move and then plans accordingly to the point to where you can't even have fun. It's that kind of stuff. Where white is, it's either my way or the highway. What Blue is, it's either my way or we're not going to do anything. That's how pretty much a Blue person kind of thinks on the bad side of Blue. They can also have paranoia, which means they have very high trust issues, which means that's what, because Blues also was one of the first colors besides another color that is known to steal things. Like there's a couple of enchantments, a couple of sorceries that have been known to be like, hey, if you pay this much, you can control your opponent's stuff. And that's how Blue is. It can be, since it knows how the mind works, it can kind of cast a spell on said object and make it mine. Or in some cases, it can just straight out jack it from somebody. Let's see, on the other side of the bad balance, Blue could also be too much of a daydreamer. It can be too much up here, but pretty much in the fantasy way, where it's just like, oh, I can't wait for this, can't wait for that. It can be so much into fantasy that it does not even want to partake in reality. It does not want to do what needs to be done to get where it needs to go. And the last part of it is, like I mentioned before, it's search for perfection, for the best answer. It could be too much on the perfection side and be a perfectionist, which means they could be the person like me on the other side of the camera to where I want to make the best content ever. And because of them making the best content ever and keep working and keep making it flashy and making it awesome and whatnot, they don't put it out. They don't do anything. That's how that can be. All right. So we got both the good balance and the bad balance of Blue, who are some Blue characters or Blue people that you may know, or maybe some Blue jobs? Let's see here. One of the things that pop in my head is Iron Man. Remember, smart, loves technology, likes to be in the know, likes to understand something before he tries to put his best foot forward. Along that, we have pretty much Ironheart and Shuri, of course, coming out with the Black Panther. We also have in another character, we have Rick. Rick is definitely a Blue person, both the good balance and the bad balance of Blue. Rick is a good example. And then pretty much in the still on the Marvel series, we also have Beast, who not only is both Blue mentally, but he has blue fur. So that's a good example of how he is. And let's see here. On top of that, we have Blue jobs. Blue jobs can be pretty much anyone who's a scientist because they have to observe before they do something. Trainers, teachers and instructors because they have to understand the subject so well they can explain it to people. That's all. That's pretty much a blue trait. Lawyers, I actually think lawyers are very much blue because if you listen to them long enough, their objections or how they say something almost sounds like a blue player saying counterspell. So think about that. And then, of course, we have an analysis or analysts because they want to analyze data. Remember, they want the information to see what's efficient and then adjust their actions after that. And then of course we have people who love technology, from the people making computers, computer who to the people who make websites and everything. Those have a good bit of blue in there because they understand that technology is the future, and they put in their 2 cents with the future. So with that being said, I hope this helps. I hope you like it. If you like this, please like, share, subscribe. Please let me know what you think. Hope to hear from you soon. I'm Boy Quan, and I'll talk to you later. Deuces.